Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Folks, the word hypocrisy doesn't even suffice anymore. It's not even enough. The leftist Twitter mob, the vote blue no matter who crowd, are actually like a bunch of mindless NPC drones. Their party says something, they clap and cheer how heroic, how brave of a statement, and totally agree. But of course, if a conservative or a Republican said the same thing maybe a couple months ago or has been saying it for years, well, they're a terrible, evil racist. I mean, it's just crazy how inconsistent they are. And it's issue after issue, and the way they can just be such incredible hypocrites. After 2 years of saying defund the police, all of a sudden they can switch and start pushing for funding the police and completely forget their past 2-year history of causing all of the chaos that we're currently seeing unfold. Oh, that never happened. No, we never said that. And they immediately just move on as if nothing happened. Well, here's another great example, this time with the southern border. Republicans have been saying that Joe Biden's border policy, or lack of a border policy, is completely unsustainable. And they've been condemning the busing and flying of illegal immigrants across different states. Texas and Arizona said enough is enough, and so they started packing illegal immigrants into buses and shipping them all the way over to Washington, D.C. to give them a taste of their own medicine, a taste of their own policies. And now, all of a sudden, Democrats are concerned about busing illegal immigrants. The moment it affects them, all of a sudden their tune changes totally. Violent riots and violent protests were totally justifiable until they got a little bit close to their gated communities, and then all of a sudden it was the end of the world, just like we saw in 2020. Well, now it's the exact same thing. Illegal border crossings and the busing of illegal migrants is just left-wing compassion as long as Texas and Arizona have to deal with the consequences, but the moment it crosses their border, comes into their backyard, it's a completely different thing now, isn't it? Let me show you guys DC Mayor Muriel Bowser, another extremely dishonest Democrat, exposing the hypocritical nature of the Democrat Party. Let me show you guys what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at this. DC Mayor Muriel Bowser says illegal immigrants are being tricked into getting on buses to Washington, D.C., and that the federal government needs to take action to prevent it.
And groups are getting overwhelmed by these buses that the governors of Texas and Arizona are sending here full of migrants. How significant is this influx? How many people?
Well, this is a very significant issue. We have for sure called on the federal government to work across state lines to prevent people from really being tricked into getting on buses. We think they're largely asylum seekers who are going to final destinations that are not Washington, D.C. But I fear that they're being tricked into nationwide bus trips when their final destinations are places all over the United States of America.
Now you see the hypocrisy. All of a sudden, busing illegal migrants is a big issue the moment the illegal migrants are being bussed into DC. But my immediate response to dishonest DC Mayor Muriel Bowser is, in response to her use of the word tricked. That is possibly the worst word that any Democrat could say right now in relation to the southern border. Texas and Arizona aren't tricking illegal migrants to go to Washington, D.C. The Democrat Party and Joe Biden have been tricking illegal migrants into thinking that they're welcome and there's a path to citizenship for them with their rhetoric. Throughout the 2020 campaign, promising things like free housing and free healthcare for illegal migrants, jobs and amnesty, pushing open border policies, which then the cartels went and tricked migrants with, and now all of a sudden there's a massive southern border crisis, breaking records each and every single year that Joe Biden's been in office, with fiscal year 2022 on pace to be the worst ever.
And U.S. Customs and Border Patrol released its southern border numbers for the month of June. As you mentioned, 207,000 encounters at the border, down slightly from the record high of 239,000 in May, but that brings this year's total encounters to 1,746,000 so far this fiscal year. That's eclipsing last year's record total of 1,734,000, and there are still 3 months left in the fiscal year of 2022. So we are now set to perhaps shatter last year's record. Also in June, Border Patrol arrested 6 people on the FBI's terror watch list. That brings this year's total to 56 FBI watch list arrests, which is more than the previous 5 years combined.
In fact, it's already the worst ever, and there's still 3 months left. The only people who are tricking illegal migrants into thinking that their welcome in illegal immigration is okay is the Democrat Party. And all Texas is doing is fighting back because the federal government won't do its job. Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake is currently running on a promise of issuing a declaration of invasion on the southern border.
On day one, I take my hand off the Bible to delivering the oath of office, and we're going to issue a declaration of invasion. That's what's happening down there. We are going to finish President Trump's wall, and we're going to use the materials that are down there that we already paid for.
Lefties are saying, well, that's just extreme, anti-immigrant, racist rhetoric. But of course it isn't. States like Arizona and Texas are dealing with an unprecedented wave of illegal migration. Joe Biden stopped construction of the border wall. Border Patrol is unable to get control of the situation, and so states like Arizona and Texas are unprepared and unable to deal with this influx of illegal migrants. And so they're fighting back and they're saying, listen, this is the problem that you created, and it's in our backyard, and we're the ones who have to suffer the consequences. How about you elitist Washington Democrats get a taste of your own policies, because we're sick of it. And I hardly feel bad for DC elitists and Muriel Bowser for having to deal with a small fraction of the actual problem, and only for a couple of months. Meanwhile, Arizona and Texas have been completely overloaded with this massive crisis for nearly 2 years. Not to mention, once again, Washington, D.C. is complaining about illegal immigration after declaring themselves a sanctuary city. Washington, D.C. inches closer to becoming sanctuary city permanently. Just over a year ago, the government body passed an emergency version of this law, but it was only a temporary measure. Isn't it funny how things change real quick? Listen, Democrats, once again, you've created this problem. You're the one who now has to deal with it. This should be the baseline. This should be the standard. You want to live in a crime-infested, drug-infested, criminal-enabling hellscape? Go for it. But don't impose it on anybody else. You want to live in a pro-choice environment with abortion legal up to 9 months? Then go on right ahead and leave other states out of it. Illegal migration, open borders, sanctuary cities create the perfect environment for an unsustainable border crisis. Then Texas and Arizona shouldn't have to deal with the consequences. Ship everybody to DC, frankly. It shouldn't be just a couple buses a day. It should be over 200,000 illegal migrants a month, which is the amount of people apprehended at the southern border on a monthly basis. All of them shipped straight to the White House. Joe Biden continues to fight for illegal migrants, continues to fight in court to end Trump-era border policies, has halted construction of the border wall. Democrats have been trying to sneakily pass amnesty for the last however many years, and so Democrats should have to deal with the entirety of the border crisis. All of it. Out of touch, elitist Democrats strike again. Virtue signal, virtue signal, virtue signal, as long as it doesn't affect them, as long as other people have to deal with the consequences, and then the moment it crosses over into their backyard, they prove what kind of hypocrites they really are. I mean, just despicable behavior. And probably the funniest part of all, Democrats actually think that they'll be able to flip Texas blue in the short term. Never gonna happen. And this is probably one of the main reasons why. But that's also what I got for you guys on this one. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. I'm gonna get back to work. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.